Acá está el enchufe, donde va el cable, y va la corriente. Este es el botón de encendido. Está encendido. Esperamos a que cargue y aparecen los siguientes indicadores. El rojo es a la
Acá, y esta es la tenaza para sacar el crisol. Cuando ya el metal se ha fundido, evidentemente una vez que está fundido, cuando ya esté en 1000 y tantos grados, con una varilla de grafito se bate. Siempre hay que batir para homogeneizar la mezcla. Una vez que ha batido, se agarra con este crisol y se retira. Ahora el crisol tiene una puntita acá para que por ahí es donde vas a correr el metal a la hora que viertes a la bomba de vacío o lo que vas a hacer. No sé si está usando bomba de vacío o está haciendo centrífuga bien, pero bueno, en todo caso ya tú sabes que también nosotros tenemos las bombas de vacío, ¿no? Ya tenemos dos tamaños. Creo que esto es ya todo la cafetera. A la hora que tú terminas, cuando ya has subido esto, ya, como tú verás, ya está en 77 grados. Entonces va a seguir subiendo. Cuando ya llega pues a los 1200 se supone que ya está totalmente fundido. Si es para plata, ya tú sabes que tienes que usar menor temperatura, ¿no? Dependiendo qué metal vayas a fundir, usa la temperatura. 1200 es para el oro. Pues sabes que el oro funde a 1060 grados de temperatura. ¿Ya? Que ya una vez que terminas, apagas acá. No, vamos a... Sí que lo está grabando, ¿no? Acá vemos ya, terminamos de pasar. Es muy fácil y manejable, en parte muy delgadita, puede esta parte lisa. Vamos a pasar. Muy versátil. Vamos a pasar superficies con otra máquina que lleve posibles desventajas. Para emparejar, igual, muy rápido. Y así, la placa, echarla.
Flame creates. This flame it's really hot, and it's probably gonna, your piece might melt, or it's just gonna be too fast really to work with. So the kind of flame you really want is a pretty neutral flame. You'll hear like a soft hiss, and obviously you'll have to adjust the flame according to the size of the piece you're going to be soldering. It's important to remember that the hottest area of the flame is going to be right beyond that inner blue cone there. So that's really where you want to focus on your soldering seam. One of the most important things to remember about soldering is that you don't want to use solder to try to fill gaps. Any seam that you're going to be soldering should be as flush as possible. So you'll see I've got a really tight seam between these two pieces of metal. I'm going to go ahead and just heat them a little bit and start adding some flux. This flux seems like it works good if you heat the piece a little bit first. make sure you've got plenty on there. Now I like to pick up the pieces of solder. I heat them till they form a little ball, and then I pick them up with my solder pick and transfer them over to the piece. Another way you could do it is at this point, when your flux is dry, you could go ahead and place the little pallions along the seam and then just begin to heat the piece. Usually you want to put one right at each end. Solder is always going to follow or flow towards the hottest area. So that's why it's important to heat the piece evenly. Just gonna spread these out along the seam. There's a little bit of excess flux I'm gonna move away. But that should be plenty of solder, so you can already see like how dirty the copper gets. But I think I'm gonna adjust my flame up a little bit and begin heating the piece evenly. When your flux starts to get glassy, that's usually the point where the solder is getting close to flowing. I don't know if you just saw it flow there. But that should be a pretty good seam. It's really dirty. That's just kind of what copper does. But if you put it in the pickle, you'll be able to see if you have any gaps left. You need to go back and resolder any areas. So I'll let it clean and then we can take another look at it. So while the first piece is in the pickle, I'll show you the next type of joint, which is a T-joint. So basically you've just got one piece perpendicular to the other. And again, same thing, you want as flush of a seam as possible. And the main thing you want to remember with this kind of joint is that this piece that's standing up is going to get hotter first. All the heat is going to go to it. So really what I'm going to be doing is focusing the torch around this bottom piece. Otherwise the solder is just going to climb up this wall and it won't attach the two. So I'll go ahead and get started. Same as last time, just preheat the piece a little bit and add your flux. The reason you want your flux to be dry before you add your solder is because you can see how it's bubbling. That would move your solder all around your little pallions, so it would move them out of the place you want them to be, and you'd have to reposition everything. So if you put them on the dry flux, you don't have that problem. And the goal here is to put the pieces, again, one kind of at each end, and you want to put them right along that seam. And again, my technique for picking up the pallions is just to melt them into little balls, and then I heat my solder pick and the pallion kind of, I guess, together, and you know, they stick together, and then you can place them. And it takes a little bit of practice. To get them to stick to the piece, you have to heat the piece a little bit more than the pick, because again, solder follows the heat. I'm going to go ahead and start heating this bottom piece. Another thing you can kind of do too is like is pull the solder through the seam. Like when it starts to flow, I'll probably move around to the back and pull it through. But I'm just heating it all over, focusing mainly on this bottom piece of metal because the top piece of metal is getting hot enough on its own. You see the flux turning glassy, so the solder should be getting ready to flow. At this point I'll concentrate on the seam just a little bit more. There it goes, and then here's where I'll try to pull it through the back. Alright, and then I'll quench that. You never want to quench your piece in the pickle. It's good to quench it in water first because sometimes it can splatter. You don't want that pickle, the acid from the pickle splattering. So quench it in water.
Finest settings. It's on finest settings. Strongest, most powerful. Замерь стружку. Стружку замерь. Поехали. Hammering.
Cómo trabaja. Se enciende, esto tiene un pedal para activar. A ver. Acá tengo una argolla de 0.66. Creo que se ve la junta. No sé si la cámara me ayuda. Cuidado con los ojos, sería bueno usar lentes oscuros o simplemente cerrarlos cuando vayan a presionar el pedal. Acá me excedí, por ejemplo, en la fuerza de la soldadura. Así que vamos a bajarle un poco a costura. Cuando trabajen con esta máquina debe estar bastante junto un lado del otro, si no se comienzan a hacer como pelotitas. Tienen que ir tanteando. A ver, voy a bajarle el microtune. Está, pero no exacto. Mira, ahí la tienen. Más o menos la forma de trabajar. Disculpen que he estado trabajando en máximo. Tengo una argolla bastante pequeña. Si se pueden percatar, si que la cámara me ayuda. Ahí está. Bueno. Disculpen, esta argolla es de 0.40.
En aros. Ya. En este ejemplo vamos a grabar sobre el aro en la parte de afuera. Vamos a grabar una mezcla de imagen con texto. El texto nosotros lo podemos poner de cualquier tipo de letra, dependiendo de la que más gustemos. Por ejemplo, vamos a poner este aro y lo ajustamos. Y bien ajustado de tal manera que no se mueva a la hora de grabar. Colocamos la punta sobre el aro. Vemos que tenemos que acercar la punta lo más cerca posible, pero sin tocar el aro. Eso también tiene que ver dependiendo la profundidad en la cual se quiere grabar. Que acá también con estos botones podemos darle la profundidad. Muy bien, ya tenemos todo listo. Ahora lo que tenemos que hacer es en el software darle la orden para que grabe. Ya está listo. Ahora presionamos el botón para iniciar el proceso de grabación. Muy bien, ya hemos terminado de grabar. Ahora vamos a sacar el aro para ver la grabación. Así quedó la grabación y dependiendo del tamaño del aro, también procedemos a poner el tamaño de la grabación. Los rayos a los bordes y las letras en medio. Bueno, ahora vamos a grabar en la parte interna del aro. Para el efecto de esta grabación tenemos que colocarlo el aro en medio de los soportes que ahora están fuera del aro para poderlo sujetar. Colocamos la punta de diamante sobre el aro, la parte interna. Luego procedemos acá en el software, vamos a hacer unos cambios. En lugar de indicar que va a grabar por fuera, ahora tenemos que indicar que va a grabar por dentro. Y ya está listo para hacer la grabación. Presionamos Enter y la máquina empieza a procesar. Tenemos que esperar a que otra vez el software nos dé el paso. Ya está listo. Ahora procedemos a iniciar. Muy bien, una vez culminada la grabación, vamos a proceder a sacar el aro para ver cómo ha quedado. Muy bien, ya hemos grabado aros, ahora vamos a proceder a grabar sobre cosas planas. Por ejemplo, estas placas. Esta es la placa más grande que se puede grabar. La colocamos acá, la ajustamos para que no se mueva. Esta es una fotografía que antes ha sido convertida en blanco y negro para poder grabar. Muy bien, le damos Enter y procedemos a la grabación. Muy bien, terminada la grabación, procedemos a sacar la placa para ver cómo ha quedado.
use something, I thoroughly test every single part of it and put it through its paces. So this one's been put through its paces, and so forgive me if it looks a little dirty, but this is a genuine working tool. Another thing I'll say is that when you first receive it, you may find that it's covered in a thick, sticky brown grease. That's to stop it rusting in transit. Now, you can clean it off with white spirit and a cloth if you wish, but if you do that, make sure that you coat it again with some kind of oil, something like WD-40 spray oil, because these components are steel, and if you don't look after them, they will rust. So make sure you use some kind of oil to lubricate and protect it. So this is the Superior ring bending tool, and this is the new upgraded version of the Super. And the 4 screw holes provided, and then in turn you can fasten the plank down to your bench using G-clamps. So nice and simple, and you don't destroy your bench that way. If you have a bench vise, another solution is to use this mounting block that comes in the kit. Just flip the bender over and you'll see there's 2 screw holes. Attach it firmly with the bolts provided. Make sure that the corners are the right way around. You'll notice 2 of the corners are slightly smaller. Screw it in firmly and then pop that into your bench vise. Now, if you mount the plate horizontally, you'll find that that should be perfectly okay, but I've got an added feature on my vise here that I can swivel it round on the base, so that gives me an extra level of adjustment for comfort. To insert the pulse and die ring bending tool that you might be familiar with, and it comes with all the components that you need to get ready and working. Now, if you pick it up, the first thing you'll notice is the immense weight of it. It really is solid and heavy, and if you look at the side here you can see the thickness, and that is solid steel, so it really is incredibly well built. So it comes with everything you need, and we've got the main unit itself, which is the bender, complete with handle. You've got this small piece here which is for attaching to a vise, and I'll show you that in a moment, but you can see how thick and solid it is. And the set also comes with 7 different mandrels, and what we have here is you have round posts all on a 24mm base, and you can see we've got 12, 14, 16, 20 and 22mm posts, and each one comes with a matching die of the same size. So you can see we've got 5 circular ones, and we also have a square one here which is 90 degrees, and again a matching mandrel for it. We have a diamond shaped one at 60 degrees, and again a matching mandrel for that. And the whole thing sits on this powder coated aluminium base for storage and organisation. The unit needs to be firmly screwed down to your bench. The simplest way is to use these 4 holes here and attach screws directly into your workbench. Make sure that they're countersunk and that they don't interfere with the operation of the bender. If you don't want to make holes in your bench, you can screw it to a plank of wood like this, again using the 4 screw holes provided, and then in turn you can fasten the plank down to your bench using G-clamps. So nice and simple, and you don't destroy your bench that way. If you have a bench vise, another solution is to use this mounting block that comes in the kit. Just flip the bender over and you'll see there's 2 screw holes. Attach it firmly with the bolts provided. Make sure that the corners are the right way around. You'll notice 2 of the corners are slightly smaller. Screw it in firmly and then pop that into your bench vise. Now, if you mount the plate horizontally, you'll find that that should be perfectly okay, but I've got an added feature on my vise here that I can swivel it round on the base, so that gives me an extra level of adjustment for comfort. To insert the posts and dies, simplicity itself. Choose the post that you want and just pop it into the hole there, and that will sit there quite happily. Choose the die that you want, and due to the round stud at the back, they slot in very simply. Either way around, it doesn't matter. Just pop it in there. Simple as that. Now here I've got a piece of sterling silver burr wire with a little step on it, and I'm going to pop this in. Now notice that I'm pushing the end past the die. That's quite important. Make sure that it's level and straight, and then pull the handle and put your first bend in. You notice I didn't start right at the very end of the silver. It's often easier to start in the middle, and then once you get a curve going you can work your way around to the edge and do the end bit. So keep going, rotating it round, pulling the handle and putting little bends in, small and often. Don't try to force things and don't use too much pressure. Just keep working your way around until you get right round to the beginning. Very important, watch that it doesn't overlap. This will give you a perfect parallel straight bend. So from there you can then bend it flat, and like I said, this could be the start of a box clasp or something like that. Finally, this is a piece of triangular wire, and this is on the smaller 12mm round mandrel. And again, as long as you don't use excessive force, that's fine. What I'm doing here is, you notice I'm using the vise to hold the piece and I'm pushing it with my thumb. So that way I avoid applying too much pressure onto the actual silver itself and potentially damaging the finish. So there you go. Snip that, solder it, and that could be a nice three-dimensional ring, for example. So there you have it. As always, Pepe are constantly improving their tools. They're listening to feedback from jewellers, people like myself. So we've got Harden, these very, very popular, great beginner's torch. This is gas and air, and what this means is you have a single hose. This just connects to a small gas bottle, propane, butane, whatever. So what that means is that the nozzle has to suck oxygen from the air around us. But if you want a higher temperature, or you want a very, very fine nozzle, then what you need to do is you need to get the oxygen going into the actual torch itself. Excuse me. So this is where you have the gas and oxygen, and these allow the hottest flame and the finest flame. So this is what the Smith little torch is. So come with me, let's take a look at it. So beautifully presented, make a great gift for someone, and let's show you what we've got inside it. So we've got a few bits of paperwork. This is very important, I'll come back to this in a moment. What you have is you've got the main body of the torch here, a selection of nozzles, and you have two hoses which are pre-attached. On the end of the hoses, if I can just turn this round without dropping all the nozzles, at the end of the hoses you've got two standard gas connectors, so therefore fitting straight onto your gas and oxygen system. A red one and a green one. Red for gas, green for oxygen. So let's take this out and let's have a closer look at it for you. So here we can see a close-up of the torch itself. It's made out of metal, anodised aluminium by the looks of it, and you've got two control valves there for the gas and the oxygen. And this is one of the nozzles. This particular set comes with 5 of them, and you've got a copper nozzle, and you've got this rotating nut round it. And very important to note, the number of the nozzle is stamped on the back because the numbers are different sizes. So all you do, nice and simple, just with your fingers, no tools required, just pop it on and just screw that there. Once you've got it screwed on, just rotate the nozzle to the direction that you want it, so you want it angled away from the handle. And then once you've got it where you want it, just put a last little tighten on that. Just finger tight, that's all you need, you don't need tools or spanners. The hoses are pre-attached, as you've seen, so that's it. So let's get the gas bottles out and I'll show you the gas setup and a couple of other things that you need to connect this up. This is propane, which is red. You can also get butane as well, which are in the blue cylinders. Now, I got this from a petrol station just round the corner. Very inexpensive. You usually have to pay a couple of pounds deposit, but then actually getting refills are fairly cheap. I've actually had this bottle for about 3 years now, and I'm still using it. When you've got a little torch like this, it doesn't use much gas at all, so it's very economical. So that is the propane. You also need oxygen, so small oxygen cylinder here. And you're going to need 2 other things. You're going to need regulators, and you're going to need flashback arresters. And what they do is, these are just 2 little safety devices. They're only a few pounds, so get them fitted and it just gives you that little peace of mind. It's just an extra safety feature. Now when you buy a regulator, you need an adjustable one. because depending on the size of nozzle that you want to use, you need to be able to adjust the pressure of the gas. So very important that you get an adjustable regulator. This is connected to my gas. This bottom one is connected to my oxygen line. And these are the connectors on the back of the little torch. So remember, the green one for the oxygen. Now, important point to note, that screws on normally. So that is screwing on clockwise. Okay, so that just threads onto there, nice and tight. The gas, so purely and simply, open the gas. So just give it a few seconds and let the gas come through. Likewise with the oxygen, just give it a few seconds, just let the oxygen come out. Okay, safety goggles on, just not even a quarter of a turn, an eighth of a turn, just to open the gas up. I'm using a flint lighter, don't use a cigarette lighter. There we go. Now this is a number 3 nozzle, so this is the finest in this set. There is actually a number 2 which is even smaller than this. We can see the flame there, hopefully you can see that on the camera. So just a little bit more gas. Now if you give it too much gas, you will blow the flame out. So you want it as big as possible, but when it looks like it's starting to blow out, you'll hear it hissing, you'll see the flame moving away, just back off a little bit. Okay, so we've got the yellow flame there, so that is just the gas that's burning. I can now turn on the oxygen, and you'll see it turn blue, and the flame turns blue, and you'll hear it start to hiss as it gets hotter. And there we go. Now hopefully you can see that on the camera. Let's put a block behind it there. So hopefully you can see that. That is a very, very tiny little flame. But if you remember what I said earlier, because we've got the oxygen being fed right into it, that is a very hot flame. So we'll swap.
Một dây cấp nguồn. Cái này là cái để chúng ta giữ cái cây để chúng ta hàn. Cái nữa đây, sản phẩm đi kèm nữa đây. Khi chúng ta hàn thì cái tia lửa lượng điện nó sẽ bắn qua cái đầu này. Đó. Máy này có trọng lượng khoảng 4 kg tới 4 kg rưỡi nha các bạn. Xem phía sau. Phía sau đây, một ổ cắm nguồn. Rồi, giờ tôi sẽ ráp vào phần chân đế vào ha. Ta sẽ xoay nó vào. Đây, nó sẽ như thế này. Chúng ta sẽ gắn cái cây này vào luôn. Chúng ta có thể điều chỉnh lên xuống được nè. Đó. Siết chặt nó vào. Rồi, tiếp theo chúng ta sẽ cắm cái dây nguồn vào ở phía sau. Ok. Khi hàn thì chúng ta sẽ đạp con góc này. Đó. Thì tia điện nó sẽ bắn ra. Rồi, ok, chúng ta bây giờ sẽ cắm điện vào test thử nó như thế nào. Chúng ta sẽ bật cái nút nguồn lên. Đó. Đầu tiên tôi sẽ để ở mức số 0 mà tôi sẽ hàn thử. Và ở bên nút bên đây độ nhỏ. Ok. Đây bây giờ tôi sẽ hàn cái phan của cái khóa này nha. Còn cái phá này chúng ta xài nó dướng, nó hay bị quát cái phá này ra lắm. Sẽ hàn cái phen này lại luôn. Mối hàng rất là đều, rất là mịn, rất đẹp ha. Cái phen này to nè, phen này dây to nè, nhưng mối hàng rất là đẹp, rất là mịn. Đó. Ok, thấy cái phen trong những cái lắc tay chúng ta đeo nè, thường hay dài chúng ta hay cắt bớt. Đây, giờ tôi sẽ thử hàn cái phen này lại nha. Đây. Rất đẹp nha các bạn. Đấy, nó hàng rất là liền lạc ha, mịn. Ok, ám khói đèn đen chúng ta lấy tay chùi là ra hết, không có gì hết. Ok, chúng ta sẽ hàn thêm một phen nữa. Bây giờ tôi sẽ hàn 3 cạnh luôn nha các bạn. Một cạnh. Để xem một cái nó như thế nào. Một cái thì nó đã đẹp rồi. Đây. Hàng chúng ta dính rất là chắc chắn. Đó. Thêm 2 cái nữa xem sao. Đây. Mối hàng chảy rất đẹp các bạn. Tia lửa nó phóng ra nó tạo thành một cái lớp khói nó bám, chúng ta chà nó sẽ hết rồi. Đây. Nó rất là liền nha các bạn.
So this is the new Super Q HT phrase. So this one has been specially designed in collaboration with Stone Setters to cut the channel, otherwise known as a bright cut, instead of using a graver, or as I like to do it, in collaboration with a graver. It's flat on the inside and curved on the outside. So I'm going to use it on the opposite side, and then when I want to cut the other side of this, I'm going to go back to this way. So I'm going to use lubrication, and this can be used in any metals, but I'm actually blown away with how good this works in stainless. So obviously it takes a bit of practice. You definitely need to be super careful. You know, I think for somebody who's not used to a graver, you could use this potentially for your entire cut and just polish. For me, I'm going to go a little bit back from my lines so that I can come back in afterward with my graver. So that's what I've done so far. You know, you can go deeper. If this is the only way you were doing it, if you weren't using a graver, by all means, you could go ahead and go to polish there. But I'm going to go back in now with my graver. Now, I'm obviously not getting bright cuts. This is stainless. And there we have it. Now, if you have ever tried bright cutting